Here's a quick video for you today. When building a layout, we want to keep the weight as low as possible. Many of us today are building portable layout sections, so it's important to keep the weight as low as possible to make them easier to transport. Plaster castings look amazing, but if you want to use quite a lot of them, they can get quite heavy very quickly. So I thought, why not try to make them using a Sculptamold style modeling compound? So let's test it. For testing, I'll be using my homemade tunnel portal silicone mold. For the best results, I spray the mold with some water mixed with a few drops of dish soap. This helps the plaster flow better, so we can get a nice detailed casting. To avoid bubbles when mixing your plaster of Paris, always add the water first, then sprinkle in your plaster and let it absorb into the water like this. I like to mix my plaster of Paris to a fairly thin consistency. Then I simply pour it into the mold. I also made some rock castings, but for the video I think the tunnel portal is better for testing. About an hour later I demolded the tunnel portal casting and it was a success. For the Sculptamold version, I used a mix made with cellulose fiber insulation. My formula is 50% paper fiber and 50% plaster of Paris. I don't add any glue to the mix because the only PVA glue I have reactivates when it gets wet, even after drying, which can be annoying when painting since it softens again. However, I think using PVA glue that doesn't reactivate with water once it dries could work really well and make the casting stronger. After carefully mixing to avoid introducing air bubbles, I poured it into the mold and let it cure for about an hour as well. This is how it looked after removing it from the mold. Then I let it dry completely. Actually, I left them on the shelf for about 2 weeks while I worked on other videos. Before comparing how they take paint, let's first look at the weight difference. The plaster of Paris casting weighs about 150 grams and the Sculptamold one weighs about 100 grams. Here I also have some rock castings. They are not identical and some of them are already painted, but they are all fully dry. You can see the small plaster casting weighs about 33 grams, while this larger one made with Sculptamold weighs only about 25 grams. But since they are lighter, should you ditch plaster castings completely and switch to Sculptamold? Well, maybe not. Let me show you how they take paint first, and then I'll share when I think this can be a good option. When painting plaster castings like these, you first want to mist them with some water or quickly dip them to prevent the paint from soaking in too fast. Then I use diluted acrylic paints to color the individual bricks in different tones for some variation. After that, I go over everything with a brown wash. Once that's dry, I apply a darker wash. This settles into the crevices and brings out the detail by enhancing the contrast. It also darkens and blends the different shades together. That's why I exaggerate the color differences earlier, because I know the washes will even them out. I think I should make an updated video about painting plaster castings. Let me know if you'd like to see that. Here's how they both look after painting. Personally, I found the Sculptamold one a bit easier to paint because it didn't absorb the moisture as quickly, making it easier to apply the paint evenly. But overall, there wasn't a big difference. It's definitely softer though. You can scratch or dent it more easily with your fingernails. So in conclusion, if you want the strongest option, just go for plaster. But if you are building a portable layout and want to keep it as light as possible, then I definitely recommend giving this a try. But do some testing for yourself before you commit. And let me know what do you think of this idea. By the way, if you want to see my favorite method for making your own Sculptamold style modeling compound, click the video on screen. Or if you'd like to see how I make the silicone molds, click this video. And thanks for watching.